Coming up on GET,
we get tutored on tutoring.
We sit down with a North Korean immigrant.
And we talk equity at CHS. Need a little help with your studies? Aaron and Sophia have got you covered.
Here's their highlight of Helping Hounds.
Helping Hounds has brought peers together for the past few years, benefiting both sets of students. Mr. Robinson and some participants share their experience and hope for further club development.
Helping Hounds is a peer-to-peer tutoring program where students essentially help students. Most often it's upperclassmen, juniors and seniors helping freshmen and sophomores.
I went every day after school until 4, and my tutor helped me with math, and it did help me understand more of what I was learning in class.
They can do it once, twice. They can do it. They can meet every week. They can meet whatever they want, whatever they choose. And for the volunteers, for the Hounds, we like to call them, they can volunteer their time. They come to me and just kind of register in a sense, and then they can pick and choose when they want to help.
Sometimes you have to be patient because sometimes the person you're helping isn't on the same level of understanding a subject.
Students tend to learn better from students.
Not be more nervous of not being afraid of asking someone who's your peer instead of a teacher, so I guess I was more comfortable with that.
Well, I really hope for the individual people I've helped that I've helped them to understand their subject better.
Basically, I just emailed Mr. Robinson, and then I was assigned a tutor, and after that we just met regularly after school, and there's people out there to wanting to help you, so I think people should take the opportunity.
Come by and see me in room 112. I'm there throughout the day.
We'd love more upperclassmen, more students in general to join the Helping Hounds Club and be there for other students if they need academic help.
This has been Aaron Zoll and Sophia Fish reporting for GET.
You've heard plenty about North Korea in the news lately, but did you know there's a connection to Clayton?
Alex, Sydney, John, and Josie sat down with Josie's grandmother to learn about what it was like to grow up in North Korea.
The grandmother of 2 CHS students shares her experiences growing up in and escaping North Korea during the Korean War.
The bombing was every day. Every day. It was funny. You know how the kids are. My brother, who was 7 years old, he would come in, Mom, oh, the plane's dropping beer bottles, because those bombs to him looked like beer bottles.
So America gets involved in the Korean War largely due to Cold War concerns. The Russians declare war, they invade Manchuria, and all of a sudden we become very concerned that the Soviets are going to dominate the peninsula. And so what ends up happening is we make a deal as our armies are moving north and as the Soviet armies are moving south into Korea to have a temporary dividing line at the 38th parallel.
Well, we were right at that 38th parallel, and the troops, South Korean and UN troops were coming up, and then retreat, and then North Korea coming down. So we saw all those coming up and down, up and down. We all played around that ruins, and then big piece of metal, I'm sure it was from the bomb, and it was jumping up and down, and then I cut myself.
Within several weeks, the war front went all the way down to the south, leaving just what we call Nakdong perimeter. It's along the river Nakdong and the south and east of Korean Peninsula. So when that happened, the people evacuated from North Korea. So at some point, Busan and Daegu were just crowded with all the evacuees.
When we were rescued, it was big army trucks. All these village people were loaded. When we were all came down to south in that big truck with these UN troops and South Korean soldiers. they had big drum of something. I think this was DDT. We were all lined up, going down, and they just grab and then put something in case we have all these lice and things like that added. So those things, I can still smell that powder. So from there, and we took the train. It was not regular train. There's no windows or anything. So we were going down south, all the way down to south, and went down to Busan. That's way south. It was all club houses, the temporary houses for all these refugees. And so we were there. We were just happy little kids and went to school, and everything was just wonderful, just growing up. Although it was North Korea, we didn't know any better. So what we have was just wonderful life.
This has been Sydney, John, Alex, and Josie reporting for GET.
Statistically, either you or someone you know have experienced a concussion.
And this isn't just Clayton. Across the nation, high schools are having conversations about sports injuries.
Sydney investigates if Clayton does enough to educate its families about the dangers of concussions.
In the past few years, the negative effects of concussions have come to light. But how do concussions affect students, and what actions does the school take? Former soccer player Maddie Bale explains her experience with concussions.
I don't remember it all that clearly, but I know I got knocked down from behind, and then when I was trying to stand back up, I got kicked in the head. I always thought it was kind of just something that would last like 2 or 3 weeks and then be over with, but that's definitely not how it went for me. I still am having headaches every day, so yeah, 6 months later.
So there's really no good way to predict how long a concussion is going to last. The severity, it depends on the severity of the injury, but everybody's different. So for one student, the symptoms might last for 3 to 5 days. For others, it could be weeks and weeks and weeks, and maybe even months.
I mean, any Clayton student, it's hard to just go from like 110% to like doing absolutely nothing. Like that's just not really in our nature at Clayton. So yeah, academics are really scary.
The nurse's office provides the student and the family with concussion accommodations. It's not informational, but essentially if they take that to their doctor, they can get certain things to help them with schoolwork. Like, do we want to give extended time on tests? Do we want to limit homework to 10 minutes per class per night?
It's kind of just like you lose a trust in your brain, and that like makes it really hard to get the motivation to like try to study for a test, because you know that you're just going to forget what you studied.
In the 2016-2017 school year, there are an average of 5.7 concussions per 10,000 athletes in girls soccer. Athletic Director Bob Bone explains how Clayton High School compares and what the school is doing to prevent concussions.
I think our numbers fall in line with what's going on within the state. We try and use the highest rated equipment in terms of the safety factor, and we try and educate our parents and our students.
I just wish I had known like how bad a concussion could be, and that wouldn't have been a risk I was willing to take.
Before students start with athletics, they are required, them and their parent are required to sign off on, it's called Heads Up Concussion. It's an information packet. It's all about concussions, the signs, symptoms, and they're expected to read it and sign off on it before they start any sport.
While most concussions do only last a few weeks, some severe concussions can last for months. This was the case with Maddie Bale.
I think the school needs to make it more clear, like, a concussion is something that can affect you for longer than a week. People deserve to know that before it's like too late.
It is important to listen to your body. If you start to get headaches and you have a concussion, then that is basically your body telling you that you need to take some brain rest and some quiet, and pushing yourself beyond that can actually maximize the effects of the concussion.
Just seeing how like negatively this has impacted my life, there's no way I would ever consider going back and playing again.
This has been Sydney Tennell reporting for GET.
Conversations about equity are being had throughout the entire school district.
Aaron and Sophia go in depth to cover one area where CHS might be falling short on equal access.
The lack of diversity has been a noticeable issue in honors level classes at Clayton High School for the past several years, and it affects each student, teacher, and administrator. Dr. Grachewski and a couple of Clayton students share their insights and experiences regarding this matter.
About a quarter of our students are students of color. That's not what you see in our honors classes and our AP classes, and that's been pretty consistent with my experience for the past 17 years. It kind of causes us to question why our honors classes don't look, in terms of demographically, the same as our general student population.
They maintain a decent amount of diversity within the actual class itself, but that diversity I feel like starts to break down once you move into talking about what classes specifically people are taking.
Despite over 20% of the Clayton body being of African American race, only 1 to 2, if any, black students are enrolled in each honors class.
Last year, I know I was the only African American student in my honors English class. Being that changed treatment a little bit. Teachers treat them differently, almost kind of like the token black student.
I think diversity is really important because diversity in any sense, if you're talking about diversity in terms of, the race or the gender, and any type of diversity contributes to diversity of ideas.
I think a lot of those structures and those practices that limit the diversity that we see in some of the high school honors classes begin well before freshman year of high school. And so I think we need to look at our practices as a district, and that could be an awareness of how taking certain courses impacts you further down the road.
I think that implementing diversity is tricky, but I see students that I know could be in honors classes, and in that I've seen 2 things happen. One, there are very few other black students who opt to take those classes. And then the second thing is that when they do, especially the ones that I saw earlier in middle school or in early, freshman year, early high school, ended up dropping those classes.
That's what students need, is kind of like a push, because without a push, they won't do it, because they'll think it's too hard.
There needs to be a way to group these students together, or we need teachers or we need teachers to focus more on making sure that students who have the potential, who might need slightly different instruction, are able to get it.
Everyone has a level of kind of implicit bias that they may or may not recognize, and I think that the more that we have these conversations, the more that we examine our own kind of, biases and are willing to talk about them, I think that the more aware we become, and then ultimately the better we're able to respond to them.
This has been Aaron Zoll and Sophia Fish reporting for GET.
Thanks for watching, CHS. This has been GET, a production of the Greyhound News Network.
We'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, have a great weekend.
What do you get when you cross a vampire with a snowman?
What?
Frostbite.
What do you call a cat that's been arrested?
What?
A perpetrator.
What's the only room in a house a skeleton can't go in?
What?
The living room.
What's the difference between a piano and a fish?
What?
You can't tuna fish.
What's a ghost's favorite ice cream?
What?
Ice cream?
Keep going. How do you make a tissue dance?
Put a boogie in it.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Why?
To get to the other side.
Why did the monkey fall out of the tree?
Why?
It was dead. What do moms dress up for Halloween?
Mummies.
Why didn't the skeleton cross the road?
Because he had no guts.
Why didn't he go to school? His heart wasn't in it.
What's a skeleton's favorite snack?
What?
Nothing, because he's a skeleton and he doesn't eat anything because he's dead.
But if he could eat, what would he say before meals? Bon appetit.
That was good.